Okay, thank you for joining us, everybody. We appreciate you being here this early in the morning and joining us for conversations with Kurt Hankinson, who's the ORS board president. I'm Tim Mix, Marketing Communications Manager for ORS. Also joining us is Sharon Smith-Terry, Chief Executive Officer of ORS. And we have a good group today with some good opportunity to ask Kurt questions about ORS, and we'll just get started here. So thanks for being with us, Kurt. These are good sessions to have available for members. Can you tell us what's in store for ORS this summer?
Thanks, Tim. Thanks everybody for joining. I know it's we're coming off a holiday, and I'm sure everyone's kind of busy, although not all of you obviously were celebrating Memorial Day. I guess Kate, you probably weren't. But at least in the US, we were celebrating Memorial Day yesterday, so we had a 3-day weekend. The summer is an active time because it's when the program committee, the scientific program committee for the annual meeting, really starts to get rolling. As an example, they're considering the workshops and the rigs that have been submitted earlier in the spring, and starting to think about putting together the program. The ORS staff with the board has developed what our theme will be for the annual meeting, and so that's some other work that has been done. Other things this summer that we're working on, that we're continuing to work on, are one big thing is the musculoskeletal workshop that will be held in Zermatt, Utah, in late July. And so for those of you who know, the musculoskeletal workshop is what used to be the Sun Valley bone meeting that many people are familiar with, and then the ORS started running it a few years ago. And so it was a great meeting last year in Snowbird, and this year they put together a nice program again, and people can check that out on the ORS website. Other things for the summer, I think, to mention, we're continuing to do our work on this transformational gift, the Cypress money that I've announced before, where we'll try to spend money to transform the ORS into the future. And so the board and the staff are continuing to work on how to spend that money to benefit the members the best. So those are some things that are going on, just a brief overview. And we're happy to take any and all questions, but Tim also probably has some questions for me specifically too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody just go ahead and chime in, or you could raise your hand or post in chat, however you prefer, but we'll get to you anytime you post. So anytime throughout the course of the meeting, just jump on in. Kurt, can you tell us about, we recently sent around the survey for the bylaws. What's the situation with that, and have those passed?
Oh, thanks, Tim. Yeah, I forgot to mention the bylaws, right? So we had a group that was made up of board members, had been working on revisions to the bylaws for about 6 months. And then we had an online vote. I don't know if those of you on the call here voted or not, but hopefully so. Bylaws passing requires 10% voting by the members, and so we had more than 10% vote. We had 322 people vote, which might not seem like a lot, but we consider that to be a success when we're able to achieve more than 10%. And 85% voted yes in favor of the bylaws. We offer 2 opportunities for voting. One was you could just vote in block for all the changes that were made, because there were many individual changes, or people could go in and vote for sort of individual changes. And the vast majority of people, again, 85%, voted en bloc for the bylaws passing. So the bylaws will change, and a lot of the changes are minor, language updating, making things a little bit more modern, clarifying some items. Some of the more substantive changes were considering how board members are picked. we've always had some elected board members, including the presidential line, members at large, secretary and treasurer. But our council positions had not been elected positions and now will be elected positions. So that's a big change. We thought that it was important that the members had some role in the process of picking the council chairs. The council chairs being who kind of oversee individual committees, and so the council chairs will be elected just like the members at large, just like the presidential line, moving forward. So that's one big change with the bylaws. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything more to say about that, Tim, unless there's any specific questions anybody has about them.
I do not, unless anybody else has anything. All right, we'll move right along. Kurt, can you tell us a little bit about the orthopedic events calendar that's been posted recently and shared by ORS?
Oh, sure. Yeah. This is something new. I mean, Tim, can you put it, maybe paste the link in the chat?
Sure thing.
So the ORS has started this nice event calendar. Can we share a screen?
I'm going to share the link in just a second here.
Okay. Can we share a screen? Can we show people?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we do that.
You want to do it, or I maybe
Yeah,
I can do it?
I'll share screen, Tim, while you put the link
Okay.
in.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Because I think it is really nice. The ORS has put together a calendar, an event calendar that anybody can post potential events on. So meetings that are upcoming that you want the community to know about, you're able to post on there directly. Perhaps at one point our plan will be that we will accept some small donations for institutions or maybe outside groups who want to post on it as well. But right now, anyone who's interested can send a link directly to the link directly to the ORS website and get something posted. So this is kind of how that event calendar is looking right now, as Sharon is sharing it. Can everyone see that?
And you can get to it right from the home page. There's a little button right under the carousel that you just click on it. And that's how you get to this page. Okay.
Thanks, Sharon. That's great to have. I appreciate that.
Also, there are a couple other features to that calendar where you can look at it in different views from that page, and then also share it to your own calendar. So it brings all that information into your own calendar, which is pretty nice.
Oh, that is good. Thanks.
Yep.
Happy to take any questions from the audience here.
Kurt, we've had one that was submitted earlier during registration from Sahil Sharma.
Okay.
And it says, hello, Kurt. I was wondering if you had any information on opportunities for medical students to engage in research in orthopedics.
Well, I think so there's I guess maybe two thoughts. One, there's the potential for engaging with the ORS, as a research organization. And I think there are opportunities to do that through, some of the online content, webinars that we have, or obviously attending the annual meeting, although that's probably a little bit more difficult to do as a student. For medical students to get involved in orthopedic research, like at their institution, it can be quite a challenge. We struggle with this at the University of Michigan, where I'm at. This sort of, to be an orthopedic surgeon requires some research, and yet they struggle to find positions. And I think my best suggestion for actually sort of being involved in day to day is to try to be persistent and aggressive. Try to find somebody who's willing to at least provide some initial mentorship. Somebody that will take you on as a mentee, and then perhaps that can lead into a position doing some actual research. But I think it's key to be persistent and aggressive. I will get at the University of Michigan, one thing that we do as an example is we have a, you can submit to an online portal for interest in being engaged in orthopedic research. And so we'll get that from Michigan students, but we'll also get it from students that are outside the university that are interested in doing something remotely. And so that then comes to all of us as faculty. So we see people who are interested. So those different universities might have similar links that you could apply to. It is a real challenge. And I think something for us as an organization to think about how we can maybe work to provide better opportunities for medical students to be engaged in research. So I think it's a good question and definitely stimulates me to think a little bit about how we could do more as an organization.
Great, thank you. If anybody has any questions, just go ahead and raise your hand or put them in chat. We could get to you. Kurt, you talked about the musculoskeletal biology workshop a little bit. Could we delve a little bit deeper into what that event might be like and what people could expect and what the benefits of being a participant in that event might be?
Yeah, sure. So the MSK workshop is a format that's somewhat similar to a Gordon conference, or for those of you who have been to the Advances in Mineral Metabolism meeting that's held in Snowmass, and for skiing, and Dana and Larry on the call, they're very familiar with the AIM meeting. It's a similar format to that, where there are lectures and presentations in the morning, and then the afternoon is generally more free for socializing of events, sort of small group discussions, some mentoring that might go on, as well as like just hiking and running and biking and that kind of thing, and then evening sessions of presentations. It's small and intimate, and it's a great way to get to know people really well. The history of the meeting was that it was very bone focused, and now, as the ORS has been running it, the meetings become more broadly musculoskeletal. And so like the topics that they have this year are like an OA single cell omics focused session, the skeletal stem cells, or the identification of progenitor cells, which is an exciting session. So Sir Sean Morrison is invited to that, and Matt Greenblatt. A session on mechanobiology, and then an osteoclast session, and then an interesting session that's on kind of targeted therapeutics to bone or to the musculoskeletal system, and then a session on rare bone diseases. So across the span of the days of the meeting, those will be the primary sessions that are at the meeting. And it's a great event for sure, and a great community that's been involved with running the meeting for a long time. Terry Bolito and Alex Roebling, as well as their committee that runs that. So I very much encourage people to attend, and Utah in the mountains in the summer is absolutely fabulous. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, on the ORS side, staff side, we've been talking a lot about these activities that they have available on site, how beautiful it is there, and how even outside of the science aspect of it, it's a great place to go meet others and experience nature and experience some of the great activities that resort has available.
Yeah, for sure. This is the first time we'll be there. We were in Snowbird last year in Utah. Again, the meeting originally had taken place in Sun Valley, and Sun Valley was a great location where people were and lots of people who've been at the meeting a long time are very attached to Sun Valley, but it became a little bit too expensive to hold it there. And so we still maintain the mountain site. And in some ways, I think it's easier, right? I mean, to get to than Sun Valley was, because the Salt Lake City Airport is very close, and to Zermatt, and I think less than an hour and a half, is that right, Sharon and Tim? Yeah, so for those of you who haven't been to the mountains of Utah, they're fantastic. So it looks like Dana put something in.
Yeah, my question, which I put into the chat, but I was asked to unmute. Hey, Kurt, it's really great that you're doing this. I mean, I really appreciate it. And it's been a little bit difficult to understand sort of the flavor of that meeting relative to AIM, where AIM really focuses more on postdocs and senior postdocs in terms of presentations and in a competitive way. What's the flavor and the mixture of graduate students, postdocs? If graduate students come, they just come, or do they present? How does that work? It's been a little bit difficult to get that from just the advertisements to the meeting on how that works, and what's the mixture of, faculty, postdoc, students, that kind of thing. If you know anything about that, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. I appreciate that. So in some ways, I think the opportunity for sort of late stage trainees to participate is very similar to the AIM meeting, in that they have, the ASBMR Harold Frost Awards, right? Like AIM has the John Haddad Awards, the Frost Awards support individuals to come and present, and then those people present there as well as part of the sessions, kind of again like AIM. I would say that, maybe unlike AIM, right, they do have posters submitted as well, and so there are poster sessions, and so you will find I think younger trainees at that meeting than maybe typically we would find at the AIM meeting. And for full disclosure, I am a part of the AIM meeting. I am a past president of AIM, as is Dana, and as is Larry Suva on this call too. So there are 3 past AIM presidents here. So I think in the one hand, it has a flavor a little bit like AIM, but yet I think is a little bit broader in the audience than maybe we achieve by, graduate students at least having the opportunity to participate in poster sessions and that sort of thing. So including, I think this year, and I don't know, maybe they did it last year, I can't remember. This year, though, there are opportunities for poster presentations, not just sort of walking around at the posters as well. So
Okay.
yeah, so I think similar, but maybe a little bit broader of an audience.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's, do you like your mountains in the summer, or do you like your mountains in the winter? That's how I've always thought the 2 meetings.
Well, anytime you're getting ready to, a student's getting ready to graduate, you want them to be steeped in an environment where they're going to meet potential mentors for the next thing. And ASBMR is pretty big meeting. ORS is a pretty big meeting, right? Both of those are pretty large, so they're good catchments. But if you really want to spend time rubbing elbows with a potential mentor for a postdoc, opportunity, that doesn't work at AIM, right? Because AIM doesn't have graduate students. So if a second smaller meeting is either a Gordon conference, which we have some of those, or this meeting, then that might be something for us to consider in the future, which we haven't done, but we haven't been there. So that's why this information is very helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, you're right. It would be one of those opportunities for graduate students to be able to come and meet senior people. It could be a great place to sort of launch for sure, I would say. And I think similar to, I think comparing it to the Gordon conference in that respect is good, right? And in the Gordon conferences, obviously, that we've, in the past, right, if you go back a long time, we're very PI heavy, but they've done a really good job of, with that event that's, the day before, the day and a half before, they've done a good job of, I think, bringing in more young trainees to the Gordons. So yeah, thanks for that, Dana.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have a question from Larry. Larry, available to ask?
Oh yeah, I didn't want to interrupt, but I wanted to also say thanks for Kurt. Oh shit, sorry. It is me. It wasn't just a recording. I wanted to say thanks to Kurt for doing these. These are really valuable things. I mean, you're the most approachable person other than me that I've ever met, I think. So that's awesome, man. My question is, so how are you enjoying this damn job as the president of the ORS? And you know, what the hell, bro, were you thinking? And then there's a lot of things that have been happening. The society has accomplished a lot in, you know, over the last several years, lots of really, really cool things. What's been the biggest challenge for you in this role? And then why do you want to, what's your sort of goal between now and Long Beach? What is it you want to accomplish before you have to give the gavel to the next poor schlep?
Yeah, well, thanks, Larry. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the comment about approachability. You obviously trained me well. Larry and Dana have both been lifelong, career-long mentors for me. So, and I think I've tried to emulate both of you as much as I can. So thanks. How am I enjoying it? Well, you know, it's this
is being recorded,
Be
right?
careful,
Right.
man.
I am enjoying it. I'm happy to have the opportunity to serve the members. And you know, my platform when I ran, as I think you both know, was, and I still maintain that I'm very committed to this, is, you know, I want it to not be as clubby. And I'm, you know, being blunt, right? I feel like it was maybe overly clubby. People didn't know how to be involved and engaged, and which is part of the reason why I did, you know, wanted to do these conversations, right? So, you know, to have people have an opportunity to be able to reach me directly and to understand that I'm approachable and reachable, and that, you know, they can have opportunities to participate in the ORS, right? I want to, you know, ORS is fantastic. I love it. You know, it's my, obviously, you know, a wonderful, wonderful home, and it's been great for me for my career. But I think there's people, and even myself over years, who has felt, you know, disconnected and unclear, you know, where I fit in and how I have a role. And I mean, that's a weird thing to say for somebody who's the president, but you know, it's true. And I don't want anybody to feel that way. I want everybody to feel like they belong. So I guess I'm really glad that I'm able to play a role in helping to make it more open, transparent, and accessible. And I think if I think about, like, well, what is the biggest challenge? I mean, so I'll lead into that a little bit. I mean, you know, it is challenging to move, you know, to move a large ship. And I think that the staff, you know, now being led by Sharon is only into, you know, had now a full year, I think, only for what, a month now, Sharon. You know, Tim only joined us, 4 or 5 months ago. Well, there's been, you know, turnover. Sharon's done a fantastic job. And I think that we're all very committed to this concept of openness and transparency. And so, but I think it means that there's a lot to do to improve the processes. And so I think that then that'll lead into this, like, what do I hope to achieve? So I guess I still hope that what we achieve over the next, you know, I've got another 8 or 9 months now. I guess I hope we can achieve over that period of time is increasing that transparency and openness. And I think the bylaws changes were a great start to that, right? To make it sort of more clear how one becomes involved, how one becomes, you know, elected into board positions. And now we're going through and starting to improve our policies and procedures manual. And, you know, so that there's clarity, right? You know, there's clarity on how everything is done, right? How do you become a member of a committee, right? What is your terms of service on a committee, right? What if you're, you know, not following through with your commitment? Then what do we do? I mean, these are the things that we need to try to do so that we, you know, are more open and transparent. And then I think the other part about that sort of the openness is about inclusivity and diversity. You know, those two issues I think are very very important to me personally, and I think should be very important to the organization. And so I think we're going to continue to, you know, be providing increasing support for opportunities to make the organization more inclusive. Some of that will be will be done through, this Cypress gift, this donation that we received, will give us an opportunity to do things in a much more targeted, impactful way. So, Larry, did that seem like I was hitting it? Maybe did I answer how am I enjoying it? I am enjoying it. I very much am. And part of it is, having such incredible people to work with, that are, run the show, which, Sharon and Tim are two of them. And so I've really enjoyed my interaction, with Sharon. She and I meet weekly. The executive committee meets, monthly. The presidential line, we have interactions frequently too, including a recent presidential line retreat, and so interacting with the client, the other interacting with the other members of the board and other volunteers is one of the fantastic things about it. So
Perfect. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Hey, Carl.
We have a question from Gabriel.
Yeah, hi, Kurt.
Again,
Just thinking about all the opportunities for conferences over the year, and sometimes, there's a lot of overlap, and I've never been to the this musculoskeletal conference. I know sort of a toss-up before when you go to AIM, or at least for me, at one point it was like, do I go to AIM or consider the one in Utah? Is there a lot of overlap between the two? I mean, ORS is also another one that I had to pick and choose over the years. Do I go to that or ASBMR? And in my mind, thinking that there's a lot of overlap in the content or the presentations, is it sort of a completely distinct in terms of presentation or the content from AIM? Thinking about the size of these meetings. Maybe a completely ignorant question, but
no, I think it's a great question. Totally. And I think I've thought about it a lot too. So we have a number of bone people here. Maybe we have bone is way overrepresented on this call right now. And I'll tell you, Carl, you've been active Sun Valley person over the years, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. And you've been to AIM before?
I've not been to AIM, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so I couldn't speak to overlap at all.
Yeah. So I've been, so I was at Sun Valley once, as a speaker, and then I was at the musculoskeletal workshop last year. We had the board meeting there last year, our summer board meeting for just I think so the board could see what it was like and to show support for it. And then I've been to AIM for 20 plus years now. I can't even remember the number of years, but I think the flavor of the meetings is very similar, right? I do think though, one difference is that, like AIM doesn't do poster sessions and the musculoskeletal workshop does do the poster sessions. I think this focus on, the fellows that win the awards, whether it's the Harold Frost or whether it's the John Haddad is kind of similar. I think the musculoskeletal workshop has an opportunity to be bigger, like, and sometimes has, but isn't always, where AIM has always been a little bit smaller. I think if you were to look at the programs over, a 10-year period of time, my guess is the science is similar and sort of similar invited people, right? I mean, both are, I think, conferences that are people want to attend and it's an honor to be invited to attend, right? And so I think you get the very, very best of speakers. And if you look at say if you look at both of them, I think they'll have the most eminent scientists in our field presenting, and that's true of the group at the musculoskeletal workshop this year. And then I think the ORS ASBMR comparison is a good one, an interesting one too. And again, several of us are ASBMR members and ORS members, and even had leadership positions in ASBMR too. I think that I've always looked at the two, and I've been gone to both for 25 years. ORS always sort of gave me this broader musculoskeletal focus, right? So it wasn't just on bone. I could explore OA, I could explore tendon and ligament biology, I could explore the disc, and also was very translational, and I like that. Whereas for ASBMR, it was sort of really outstanding basic bone biology, cell biology, and it was very pharma focused on osteoporosis treatments. And if you look at how both of them originated, right, one sort of grew from endocrinologists, one grew out from orthopedic surgeons, and I think that still exists, although both have tried to expand their purview or what they do over time. But I would say, while we're talking about it this year for the first time, the ORS and ASBMR are trying to do some partnering where, and Larry actually is putting together a session. Larry, you're program chair, is that right?
Say what? Sorry,
Your program chair right now?
Yeah.
So Larry's program chair of ASBMR for the annual meeting, and he's put together a session that's basically inviting ORS speakers to come. So not ORS members that go both way, go ASBMR and ORS, but ORS members who maybe have never attended. And so he's doing it's a session on fracture healing that he's put together there that will be sort of featuring ORS members at ASBMR. And our hope then is that we can sort of we can do the converse and do an ASBMR session at ORS, right? And bringing in sort of people from a more endocrine perspective to ORS to speak. So,
can I follow that up as well, Kurt? Just to, from the point of view of the program committee, it's a really good question, Gabe. And I know that other program committees have tried to do the same thing. To try to not have repetition, right? So with the ORS and the ASBMR, where there's a good group of us that attend both regularly, and it's a very easy thing to get feedback if you didn't happen to go to one meeting or the other to say, was Gabe talking at ORS, then for sure we don't need him talking at ASBMR, or was Hankinson doing some stupid thing with, thrombospondins at the ASBMR. God, the ORS doesn't need that at their meeting, right? And and I know that our program committee, that's what we've been doing. And I know that the ORS folks do it. I know that other ASBMR program committees do it. For exactly, you want to try to avoid as much as possible what you were talking about. And just like Kurt said for the ORS, the goal is to have all of our annual meetings that don't have people that look like me or Hankinson on the stage, right? That's not the goal. And so I think you should keep that thought in your mind when you go to these meetings, Gabe. And if you see that kind of crap happening, you should say something. It's not what we want to see repeated stuff. Sorry, Kurt.
Yeah, no, thanks, Larry. I appreciate that. Right. I mean, yeah, I think that there's probably historically was a little bit too much of that, at meetings, the over and over again, the same people that you saw. And I think both organizations are doing a much better job of changing that and changing that over time. So
I think that's working to some degree, but there's still, and I think ORS actually does a much better job of it than ASBMR does in trying to, so if you have whatever the topic is, pick one, not get the senior most person who has 250 papers, but those that are making really good contributions that are coming up, that are more, more junior. There could still be at the assistant or associate professor level. They're not postdocs, and they're making important contributions, but they're not the person that has historically made all the big contributions. And there's still exciting science to talk about rather than getting someone who's, white-haired old guy to do it, because that's kind of tired and it doesn't necessarily bring vigor to the meeting to do it that way. So I think ORS has always done that, I think, a bit better, and you're doing a great job. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Dana. I think there's been, I think a lot of thought has been put into that, to try to do that. I mean, we can continue to do a better job. I'm not saying we're doing the best job we could, but I mean, I think we've tried to do that, and I think we could probably look at some examples over the last few years where that hasn't been true. But a good example, I think, of where it is true is where the symposium that probably got the most positive feedback at the ORS meeting this year was the one that was by early stage investigators focused on OA, which was young investigators and gave those people a chance to shine, not just sort of focusing on the same old guard and doing OA work. So
Great job.
Thanks, everybody.
Anything else?
Can we talk about the annual meeting briefly? What suggestions might you have for somebody that wants to submit an abstract? Submit an abstract for the 2024 annual meeting?
Please do. So abstracts are going to be due August 28th. The abstract portal will open on June 19th. I'm sure everybody here has submitted abstracts to the ORS. I still like the ORS abstracts quite a lot. The fact that they're more, that they're more extensive than, say, a typical meeting abstract. I know it takes more to write them, but I kind of like that about them. So August 28th is the, sort of the due date, kind of typical end of August, as we're all familiar with. I know for myself, it always comes up pretty quick, particularly when you're at the end of the summer and some people are starting to put classes together for starting to teach, probably the late end of August, beginning of September. But that's the due date, the 28th. I assume we'll probably have a late breaking abstracts submission at some point, but that's not been determined yet. Anything more specific, Tim?
No, I was just hoping to get some information out there for anybody that might need it.
Yeah, great.
One thing that I would like to talk about specifically, and is open to anybody that would like to contribute, but just wanted to gauge people's thoughts on the virtual versus recorded possible aspects of the annual meeting versus being potentially just in person.
Yeah, Tim, thanks. I forgot to bring that up. I appreciate that. Right, so we're continuing to have discussions about virtual meeting versus recorded meeting versus live live component that was similar to what we had this past year. And I'd be interested in seeing what everybody else thinks about that. I mean, we did a member survey recently, and 486 people responded to it, which is a really, really high response rate for something like that. Close to 20% of the membership responded, and overwhelmingly, people want to be in person. We're not in favor really of a live stream, but are sort of supportive of, some of the content being recorded. So I'd be interested in hearing what everybody on this call thinks. I mean, some senior people here, it'd be great to get perspectives on that.
It's
not-
cumbersome. To do the live thing and have to get the Zoom thing at the same time. Technically, it's just a pain in the butt, It's just for the moderators that are trying to do it, it's just very cumbersome, and I'm not sure how much value added there really is. So I don't know. Gabe, what do you think before you sign out? You have a comment on that?
So I haven't been on the moderator side for those types of for the virtual component, but if there was a way to make it feasible, I think it's a good option for those that can't make it out there. Maybe I don't know about fee structure, but I think the flexibility during the COVID, during that period when nobody could go out there, or half could, half couldn't, I think that's it's a nice avenue, but it may make it more difficult in terms of practicality, if that's you know, I got most of what the question you were asking, Kurt. I hope that that helped
Yeah, I know. Thanks, Ken.
my perspective.
Yeah, anybody else? Carl, you wanted to say something too?
Yeah, I think for sessions like a keynote speaker or some of the larger presentations, it might be nice to have that available online somewhere. But for science talks, it wasn't so long ago that we were skittish about folks even taking pictures of slides, right? So having that as a kind of broader, way more uncontrolled feature online, I think is something that I'm personally not for if we can avoid it. I think in extenuating circumstances like a pandemic, it made sense. But there's something to be said for being in the room and talking about science in somewhat of a protected way as it makes its way to publication that I think is important.
Yeah.
Thanks, Carl, for that feedback. Anyone else? Kate, do you have any thoughts?
Hi, everybody. Actually, no, I'm really enjoying this back and forth between all of you. It's great to just listen in. I actually do not have any questions. I really like this format. It's making everything way more approachable, as already mentioned. But the ORS already is one of the institutions that keeps me really well informed through the newsletter. So I actually like getting all the information by that. And I do hope that I'll be able to join next spring again in person after all this COVID restrictions, which kept me here in Europe for the last years.
Well, please do. We hope you can make it. I mean, you know, I think, right. So you bring up an important point, right? Relative to the meeting, having virtual component live or recorded. I mean, you've been unable to attend the meeting, obviously, you know, because of the international travel. What's your feeling about meetings and being virtual, or maybe just content being recorded? Like, did you participate last year in watching the content live at all?
Actually, I didn't last year, but that was from personal reasons. I liked the alternative in the years before when travel really was restricted.
Yeah.
And I had a good experience with the ORS. I had a not so good experience with the Termis, actually. But I think it's a huge challenge for such a big event to get this going online. The thing that, so I think that all the talks that was okay. That what was really missing was the personal interaction. That's not really possible doing it online. Yeah. But as an alternative, I thought everybody did really great with establishing it on such a short notice. So they enacted as really. I remember that some places had booked their sites and the hotels and everything, and then travel broke down, and they came up with this digital solution really fast. So it was impressive. But I must say, I do enjoy being there in person again. So we are taking it up. And as Dana said previously, it was really difficult for the PhD students to get into the community via this digital format. So now that they are able to go out, for myself in my group, I encourage them to go, whether they had an accepted abstract or giving a talk, they should just choose something. So we kept our money for the last years. So it was there for the travel. It had been put aside. So for this year, my students just go out and join conferences which they find interesting. So that some of them were in their PhD for 2 years and never had seen a conference. So yeah, it's very good that we are picking this up again.
Well, and you're right. I mean, some money was saved at least during that period of time, right? To permit some travel with people from our group. So now that's great to know. I mean, I think what we found is that you know, Sharon has all the data right on like how much the people watch the live recordings, how much people watched recordings, and I think is as Carl maybe suggested, the plenary things are the things that people watch the most, right?
Yeah.
That of recorded content, not so much the, you know, the paper sessions that are presented. And I think Carl's point about protecting new data, unpublished data is a really good one, right? I mean, we still in those sessions say no pictures, right? I mean, and so when it's all online and available, that makes it a lot more difficult to do. So,
Yeah.
and then finally, you know, the other thing, right, is about cost, right? And this is one of the things we're really thinking a lot about, right? Because to do the sort of live streaming was quite expensive. And so, you know, while we realize it might impact some access, it's like trying to balance that, you know, with at least trying to engage the community that can't be there. And so all the member feedback is helpful in helping the staff and the board to decide. Was there another question from somebody in there? Oh, Larry,
yeah.
what is ORS?
Yeah, what's the policy at ORS right there? So the musculoskeletal field, what I remember is the ORS doesn't like photos like ASBMR doesn't, but at Endo, at APS, at the American Association of Cancer Research, there's much more of a focus on getting the word out. And so people at the APS meeting earlier this year, man, people were tweeting out stuff as the presentations were happening, and the visibility of the person presenting and or the conference was huge. We've been having this again at the ASBMR program committee, having this debate, and I'm of the only voice that thinks I'm more for sharing everything. There's a lot more restrictive considerations from the other folks, and I was just curious how y'all ORS is thinking about that, because I think historically, yes, but man, communication and data and stuff, man, it's the sooner it gets out there, the better it is for everybody, I think. But you know,
Yeah. I mean, right. I mean, Larry, I guess there's our personal feelings, and then there's the what does the, you know, what does the majority of people want? And you know, I mean, right, to think at a personal level, I'm with you. I've never really thought much about it. I guess I figured if I present it, then, you know, that it's possible that somebody might pick up one of my ideas, and I guess that's great if they want to run with it. I mean, that's one of the good things about being in thrombоспondence. Nobody cares about them except me. So that's not true. But right, I think it's a good point. We've not discussed it at like the board level at all. I don't know if that's been a discussion of the program committee or the annual meeting committee over time, but one that maybe one we should be having. I mean, obviously our policy is similar to ASBMR's, and there's not supposed to be any recording or pictures being taken.
Sharon, you had some good stats there. Can you share that with the group just in case they're not looking at chat, or also for the people watching this via the recording?
Sure. You know, as Kurt said, we do have a lot of data on recordings after the meeting. And so we make the content available 2 months after the meeting. That's pursuant to our contract that we have with the provider who hosts the information for us. So we had over 2,600 downloads from that meeting. Some of the most popular downloaded content was the keynote speakers. For one, in those general sessions is what people really enjoyed, and the content on the basic science that was also very high as well. So that's the kind of data that we can continue to report. It's just that within the AV providers, they cannot unfortunately separate how many people engaged in live stream versus the recorded sessions. They just bundle it all together. From our standpoint, we took that away and saying that, okay, with over 2,600 downloads, there is value to recording the sessions. Also, though, to Kurt's point, it's very expensive to do so. And as you know, in coming to our annual meeting, our business meeting, the annual meeting is a high revenue generator for ORS. It was number one until the pandemic. So when we add all these virtual components, that really eats into our profit. And so it takes away from that. So we're at the point now where we have to decide how to balance delivering a high quality meeting with great attendee engagement and at the same time manage our costs. And that's not just an ORS challenge, that is an industry challenge with anyone who delivers meetings across the board. And Larry, I hear your point about that engagement with people being able to share online and those kinds of things. We did make that available. However, not very many people took advantage of that for this meeting. So we're trying to find the right balance for 2024. And the survey that we just did gave us a lot of insight to that, as well as a survey that the attendees took right after the annual meeting.
Thanks, Sharon.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I may maybe follow up with one comment about, revenue, right? I mean, the reason why it's useful to have the meeting generate revenue, right, is that permits us to do other programming throughout the year and support other initiatives, like supporting, the sections as an example, right? Or, other online things that are done throughout the year. So, that's why that's needed. So we're obviously not for profit, so there's no profit being made. It's all put back into the organization, obviously.
And the IRS does a fantastic job of that. I think the reinvestment in the reason that the society exists, its members, is fantastic. I mean, IRS has been, for me, has always been the role model. IRS and Endo has been the role model for doing that, for the service of its members. So you all don't have anything to apologize for that. It has always been fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. I think so too. And I agree. I mean, obviously we can do these sort of direct comparisons between the ASBMR and ORS. And, ASBMR, I'm very fond of. I think it's a great organization, but I do think that ORS traditionally has done a better job. I think ASBMR, frankly, has done a much better job over the last number of years. So, okay, well, we're getting close to the end of the hour here. I have lab meeting at 11. If anybody wants to stay for my lab meeting, they can. We're going to be talking about our mouse colony. But if there's anything else, any other questions, any comments that anybody has before we leave? Larry, do you have anything? Oh, you're saying bye. Tim, anything
I gotta
else
run. I
we
gotta
should-
go teach. Bye.
Okay, bye. Tim, anything else?
No, I think this has been great. And thanks everyone for joining us and for contributing to the conversation. And we'll plan to keep moving these forward every month, and hope to see you all in attendance at future events. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. Get the word out that they should come and spend some time with me once a month. It's nice to have people here and have the format like this. We changed formats this month versus the last, where it was sort of more closed because we weren't sure how big it would be get, but it's nice when it's not too big to be able to see everyone's faces and talk to people directly. So
Great.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
all right, thanks everybody. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.